We're recording. Good afternoon, everybody. My name is Tim Creamer. I'm the chair of the curriculum committee for the Voorheesville School Board. It's April 25th, 2023. The members of the board who are on this committee, Robin, Barbara, and myself are all here, as well as various staff members have joined us. Kelly, Jeff, Frank, and Karen. We have guests with us. Welcome. We are here to talk about several things. The first thing we'll talk about is 2021-22 and 22-23 budget set-asides for elementary reading program. There's going to be a discussion about a recommended program for reading that is published by McGraw-Hill, and we're going to be joined online by representatives from McGraw-Hill to talk to us a little bit about this virtually. I'll turn this over to either Frank or Jeff to take us from here.
All right, I'll start. So I want to first introduce who's around the table for everybody. So we have with us two representatives from McGraw-Hill today. Monique Hamilton, she's the Vice President of DEI. And then we also have Daniela Pirelli, the Vice President of Literacy and Academic Design. So we figured inviting these two individuals with us today can help answer a lot of questions and kind of go through it from their perspective, because you both oversee your departments, correct? In those areas, but actually the departments itself that oversee those two issues. At the table, we have myself, the superintendent of schools. As you know, Jeff Venzio, our elementary school principal, Karen Conroy, our director of curriculum instruction, who you've met and spoken to before, and then we'll have everyone else introduce themselves.
Kelly Lender, I'm the president of the teachers union and an elementary teacher.
Robin Willoughby, and I am a board member.
Barbara Owens, and I'm a board member.
Tim Creamer, school board member.
All right. And I just have to get up this one curriculum slideshow as we begin, because Karen's giving me the evil eye right now because it's not up already. So I will apologize, and we'll get right into the program. I'm having a slight computer technical difficulties.
You got this.
Come on. You know, and I already tested this too, even before we started.
I was going to say, you always tell me how.
It is very slow at the moment.
That's what
That happens when
I've been having this a lot.
when I'm actually
It's me again.
when I'm on actually Google Meet. Everything else works very slow for me.
Okay. I'm sorry, I'm pushing the buttons.
Sometimes stop pushing the buttons and let it work.
All right. It's loading. All right, here we go. So I just want to kind of give a little bit background before we begin. Just a second, okay, about the program itself and what led us to this point. So, and I'm only give you up to 2019. Jeff and Kelly and Karen probably can give you a little bit more before that. I know that this is something that's been asked for. A reading program has been asked for by staff and been looked into before. In the fall of 2019, a committee was put together to look at a reading program. So this is not something that's been started recently. This has been an ongoing discussion at the district for a long period of time. So during COVID, though, things kind of slowed down. And if you look back at that, you know, that took precedence. So the reading program kind of fell short at that point. They stopped. Spring 2021, administration conversation started up, and then at 2021-22, the building leadership team started exploring top reading programs, made recommendations to school level committee. We did a budget expense for the 22-23 school year to be able to purchase the programs and look into them continually. We're not there yet. We've taken a little bit longer time than we thought we were going to be to get to a finalized reading program and recommendation. And so then also 23-24, we put more money back into it to budget again for these. So then we're up here today to April 25th, and then this is where I'm here. I've listened to everybody, and we've talked about it, and they've recommended it to me. I'm in support of the program that they're recommending, so I'm recommending it to the committee to bring it forward to the board for the agenda vote in May. So that's kind of what led us there in the short time. Kelly or Jeff or Karen, do you want to add any history?
I think historically for teachers, it was because although we've been doing really great work in ELA, not having something to pull from, we're pulling from lots of different areas. And so they were looking for some way to kind of get everything in one place to kind of focus us a little bit more, but it was really for lack of anything and having to do all our own research and all of our own collection of materials that we were asking for something.
Okay.
And, you know, one of the things that we did do is we added a phonics program as a stopgap in K2, because that was one of the early areas that we saw that we really needed help with. It is separate from the things that we do, so it's not that one of the things that we'll talk about as we go through is the alignment with Wonders. And but I just wanted to add that was brought in K2 right before COVID, I think. Right?
And you also had already a presentation from Jeff and Karen prior at curriculum committee, so kind of giving you where we were and where we're going at that point. So that's why I'm kind of rushing through that point.
Sure.
So now I'm going to leave it over to Karen, Jeff, and the individuals from McGraw-Hill. So.
All right, so I think why our reading program, and so just to give you some of that history, I think Kelly touched upon it a little bit. So in general, when you think about what we've been doing over time, it's pretty much been a balanced literacy approach to teaching reading and writing at the elementary school. And what does that mean, that balanced literacy? So there's been some inconsistencies, right? We've been using different approaches. We've been using guided reading at certain levels. We've been using a workshop model and a daily 5 model. Basically, again, trying to balance that the reading and writing and the love for learning. I think over the years, we heard a lot about some different names, Thomas and Pinnell, guided reading, Calkins, some of these names that have come out, and that's pretty much the approaches that we have taken. And that's what we provided. And really, it's creating a love for reading at an early level, engaging them with as many texts as possible, and supporting them. We've identified that there's been gaps in that, and there's a lot of research out there. And actually, I think you shared an article, Tim, this year alone. There's been some really great podcasts out there. Sold a Story. There's a lot of information that's the pendulum's swinging, right? The reading wars are kind of back on, and it's coming back to the teaching systematically and explicitly to all your students. With that being said, I want to be clear, right? This is how we were all taught. This is, when we went to college to get our master's in reading and all these different level degrees, this is how we were taught by what we thought were the gurus of reading. So we thought that we were doing what was best for children. I don't want you to think that we were doing wrong for children. We still have done a really good job. We just are starting to identify that there's some gaps in learning, and some kids do need that systematic and explicit instruction, and some of those areas need to be done in those foundational skills.
Just to add in, I think I read something about it being 75% of elementary teachers and special education teachers in the elementary using those approaches. So it was very much so
100%.
wide
Right.
scale.
Right. And again, nothing that, our teachers shouldn't feel like they've done anything wrong. We've done what we were taught to do, right? I want to be very clear on that. So with that being said, the research is out there and showing that, unfortunately, some kids, aren't being taught to read or to decode a word the right way. When they get to a word, they don't understand how to sound out that word because they've never been explicitly taught that. That's where you hear that stopgap conversation that Karen talks about. We introduced a phonics program to our students. We had never implemented a full phonics program. And we were happy with our phonics program. We did teach it explicitly and systematically, and it was new to us, and we found great results to that. There are still some gaps. And when I say that there's a gap there, so we're teaching it in isolation, right? And that's one of our challenges. When I say we're teaching it in isolation, we're teaching this great phonics program. It doesn't directly connect back to the text that we're reading in the classroom. So as Kelly said, we've had to build our own libraries. Teachers have had to pull their own resources over the years, and many have done a fantastic job, but some of those resources, most of those resources, don't tie back to those explicit phonics instructional skills and or phonemic awareness instructional skills, which is a challenge because whatever you're teaching, they should see that in the text that they're reading to make that connection. And they're not doing that. And that's a challenge. And that's one of the main reasons why we wanted a fully encompassing program that supports that. All right. And so when we start talking about Wonders, we're going to build into that a little bit more. So that's kind of some of the background of what we were doing. And again, I think the main point is some inconsistencies, right? For the most part, I think our teachers have done an amazing job of being consistent at that grade level. But from one grade level to the next, they might be using a different approach or a different model, which can be challenging for students if they're learning one model and then changing to a different model at a different grade level, using different vocabulary or different, that different use of language. At the grade
Nonfiction and
levels.
fiction, information and literary. We see that even in our maps that, we go back and forth. How are we teaching main idea in detail? How are we teaching central idea? And year after year, if we don't have it where it's been, I don't think we would have the time and money to be able to spiral that very thoughtfully between all those grade levels and have everybody articulate that, right? So everybody does the best that they can with that, but to a certain extent, we don't have that equitable educational experience because it depends on who
And
you
what
have.
grade levels are we talking about?
K-5.
K-5. And actually, to go back to that point, we talked a lot about those foundational skills in K2. And really the research is showing is those foundational skills shouldn't stop in just K2. They should continue in 3 through 5. And actually one of our 4th grade teachers this year during a different program, our WIN block that we've developed, has been building multisyllabic words into their instruction and agrees and has seen that it's been a great support because some of those students are still struggling with early foundational skills for reading. And, if you're in 4th grade and you haven't been taught explicitly how to use those skills and strategies, then it's very challenging for you to close that gap. So those foundational skills are just as important in grades 3 through 5 as they are K through 2.
Should I go on?
Yeah, that's great.
Okay. A little bit more reading if you want to. As you can see, we talked about the decoding, the phonological awareness, sight recognition, all these, this is called Scarborough's reading rope, and you can see how everything matters and all of it comes together and it's not done in isolation. So when it's all brought together, that's how you're getting the skilled reading. So we're doing some of this stuff, but we're not always applying all of this together. And we're not putting time into necessarily putting time planned out into every single aspect of this. We've found that, we found decoding to be a gap, so we put in more phonics. Phonological awareness. Kindergarten teachers have brought more of that in because we know that is a weakness that we had. So I just want to share that.
And something just to note about Scarborough's reading rope, when we started doing all our research and all these different reading programs, you can note that pretty much every single reading program included the reading rope into their model. This is the latest research. Any new research in reading is going to include the Scarborough's rope and the 5 pillars of reading.
Go ahead and talk about the science of reading. And
Yeah, so the science of reading, Karen spoke a little bit to that, and obviously the 5 pillars of reading. You're building your phonemic awareness and your phonics, and then your fluency, your vocabulary, and your comprehension. So basically, any reading program needs to be built on those 5
What's
pillars.
phonemic
I
word?
was just going to ask.
Yeah, so phonics is the written word, right? Letters, right? Phonemic awareness is the sounds.
Okay.
So when you're focusing just on the sounds themselves, that's your phonemic awareness.
So the word cat has 3 sounds or phonemes. Cat.
Right,
Right,
and if
so
you're just
that's-
focusing on the sounds themselves, it's
That's
phonemic
when
awareness.
you
When you
put a
start
letter
adding
to
the
it.
letter to it, that becomes phonics.
The
Gotcha.
grapheme to the orthograph.
Yep.
Okay.
Great question.
So now we'd like to talk more about why wonders. And maybe we could give a chance to McGraw-Hill to speak a little bit about their own program there.
All right.
Sure. Hi, everyone. Thank you for having the opportunity to talk a little bit about Wonders, and here to answer your questions, of course. But I would say a couple of things I'll point out as I think is special to Wonders, having worked with the team and authorship to build it. We do believe in still instilling that love of reading, right? So some of those things that you embrace and want to make sure kids walk away from are still very important. One of the aspects about Wonders is this idea of like students' ownership of their own learning, right? So that we have these instructional routines, there's explicit instruction, but it's not hidden from kids. We talk about we can statements at the beginning of every lesson so they know what they're learning, why they're learning it, and then we have these check-in routines to have kids start to think about, are they learning it? So there's that explicit instruction. It is based on best practices, based on research that are supported by the science of reading, but it's really about the kids being able to understand how language works, how the alphabet works, and so that they can slowly realize that they're learning all this stuff so that they can read text to learn things. So another aspect of Wonders is this focus on building knowledge. You're not learning phonemes and the alphabet for in and of itself, but you're learning these things so that you can start to read and understand words, and then start to read and understand sentences, and then read longer text so that you can build this knowledge as you read lots of variety of text. So In addition to that explicit instruction, the tech sets in Wonders are focused on this idea of building knowledge, even from the very younger grades throughout grade 5. I think the other aspect of Wonders is the access to those rigorous standards, right? No matter where your kids are, we want to make sure that all kids have access to those rigorous standards, rigorous texts. So again, those instructional routines, the differentiated practice, and how all things are sort of tied together within that tech set in Wonders really helps with the access for all students to the content that we are teaching and they are reading and learning from. There is explicit instruction, there are instructional routines, but we do understand that kids have diverse needs. So there is this built-in ability for differentiation. So you might want to do things whole group most of the time if most of your kids need that. But if some of your kids need extra support or teaching on a particular element, but others do not, we provide guidance for really meeting with those kids that do need that extra support, but letting those kids who can work more independently or on their own or then extend their knowledge are able to do that as well. So the whole group and small group activities and practice are tightly aligned. So whatever you're having kids do in small group is aligned to what they're learning in whole group. There's ability and opportunity to transfer out their learning and lots of different activities to support what they're learning at the different levels that kids are at, but also guided through our instruction materials. So there's guidance to teachers about how you make decisions about those differentiations. What else? And then I would just say that our focus starting each text set with this essential question. Like we're going to dig in and read and write about this essential question, learn a lot of things and read a lot of text to answer that essential question. So this idea that kids can bring their own connections of their own lives to the topic under study, both in terms of what they talk about and how they respond to their reading, and then ultimately in their culminating task at the end of the text set.
Thank you.
There.
And so, Monique, I have a quick question. I think Karen's going to address it anyways. But when you're talking about leveling for students, I'm correct in saying that all the lessons have 2 levels down and 2 levels up, right? So the lesson can meet the needs of kids that are in the classroom, kids that are below learning levels and above learning levels, correct?
Yes, and it's really about their knowledge of that particular skill or concept that they're learning at the time, right? So yes, but we have for kids who need support to get up to grade level and those that you want to extend beyond, there are materials to support that range.
Yeah, thank you, Danielle. I'd like to share some of the conversations that we had when our literacy committee was looking at Wonders. I don't know if you can see that well there. Fully aligned program. This is what Daniela and Jeff were both talking about, aligned to the New York State standards, of course, but we would see how our phonics is looking and matching our handwriting, matching the decodable texts that are shared. And then even what we've also recently found out is that there are decodable pieces. I guess, Danielle, I think you mentioned the last time I spoke to you that from mid-first grade forward, the anthology texts, those whole group texts are even highly decodable. Isn't that correct?
Well, so at the lower grade, so by the time they get to the higher grades, they would have learned the phonics instruction to attack those multisyllabic words, but that phonics instruction does continue through those intermediate grades. And what I was saying in particular, those main materials, especially at kindergarten and first grade, are written at a level so that they are highly decodable in and of themselves, right? Because we really base that text on the phonics scope and sequence that they were taught.
And then, of course, we'd have that vertical alignment K5 with the language and the way we spiral the skills, the knowledge and the skills and the understandings of each of those standards. Our staff talked about the leveled readers and the differentiation that was provided. As Frank brought up, there's the approaching grade level, the on grade level, and the beyond. So we have that differentiation. People like that it was 100% digital. We had a teacher talk about actually we had multiple grade levels mention the excellent questioning that was provided in there. One teacher saying much higher level of questions than I would ever be asking on my own, which I thought was important. Vocab and teaching videos that go along with it. There's a number of times where the science and the social studies that come through the text. Think that's part probably of your building background knowledge, but it actually aligns to what we've looked at in the New York State standards. Differentiated spelling lists. So you have not only the spelling list that you may be using for your grade level, but you have a bit of an abbreviated one for students who are not ready for that whole list. And then you have more of a challenge level that extends for those students who are ready. The English language learner materials were by far the best that we saw in any program. It wasn't just an afterthought, it was an actual program that's married to the whole program itself, the grade level work. Reading for a purpose, writing in response to literature, the fiction nonfiction balance, and the assessments, both formative and diagnostic, came up as all positives that people pointed out too. If I could take a moment and talk about an example when I talked about the alignment in Wonders of what we're able to do when it's a program that's been carefully put together. I just grabbed a first grade example and looking at how they've been able to connect knowledge and skill. And this happens to be grade 1, unit 4, week 1. So we talked about phonological awareness, which is it comes before you get to the phoneme level. So phonological awareness activity here is a rhyme. And you can see I've taken this from the teacher text. It has, listen carefully as I read 2 words, same and fame. And you can see they're doing these rhymes, but they're using a long A sound. And then you move into the phonics lesson for that same day. And this is later on in first grade. So we're probably beyond the A with a silent E at the end, but we've got long A here with A, AI, and AY. So I've just practiced a long A sound, and now my phonics is working on long A with AI and AY as well. And then my spelling list for that week, you can see that they've incorporated a number of those long A words. And again, there are 2 other additional lists that will have those long A words as well. And then you're applying that knowledge to the skill in reading. So that week's story in the anthology is called Snail and Frog Race. And it's a highly decodable, as Danielle talked about, with multiple long A words. So I just took a screenshot of that from the teacher's book so you could see. After doing this shared reading, students would be able to go back and look for those long A words. So we're not just learning it in isolation, we're able to find different multiple ways of practicing it and applying it. So when we come in contact with that in our own reading, we're able to see that, identify that. So that's the connections that I was talking about there. In addition, there are decodable texts, which is great because I don't know that we have much in the way of decodable text right now in the elementary, a little
I was
bit.
just shaking your head saying no.
No,
Well, we have a great leveled book room, but they're not.
They don't have decodable text, correct.
What's decodable text?
You can use the regular phonics lessons that you've learned to be able to sound out that word, to decode that word.
so basically the idea is you teach a skill and you have a book that reinforces the exact skill that you just taught. So they're decodable in nature. So that's the skill
They'll
that you're
find
teaching,
things in that text.
They'll be able
that are-
to then
like
apply it as they
if
read
you're
it
teaching
themselves.
the A, the AI, the AY, like she
this
just
is.
mentioned, it'd be an entire book on A, Y,
It'll
and
be a
AI.
little short little book.
Gotcha.
And this is especially good for kids who are, that are struggling or dyslexic or special
It's
education
very
skills, or
explicit.
even below reading levels. Like, so
Or English
we have
language
these learning
learners.
gaps that we know we have learning gaps and learning loss. These are the things, this science of reading and doing it like this way really helps target those interventions.
When would Wonders come into play? What grade level?
K through 5.
It's a
K through
K-5 program.
K through
Yep.
5.
So here with this, going with this lesson, there are actually 4 different decodable texts that you have to offer with your small groups, all for this long A. So the first couple are straight A, and then it gets into the AI, AY, I believe.
And some of them are more challenging for your higher level students as well.
And
That's the
then,
point.
yeah, exactly what I wanted to go into is our, I was looking at all of this online, the tier 2 classroom instruction, which is built right in. So we talked about how Wonders provides lessons and support for teachers to be able to teach students who are approaching grade level, on grade level, and then beyond grade level. And it's right there for the teacher, right? It's not trying to constantly be pulling new books and figuring out where each group is going to go. So you've got the small group level text, which are available for instruction. You also have phonics lessons for the approaching and the on-level groups for this particular lesson. And then for those who are in the beyond group, they had a vocabulary and multiple meaning word lesson. For our English language learners, they're using the on-level text, but there are lesson supports like words to know and ways to build background knowledge before reading the story. So a lot of that tier 2 support is right there for teachers. And I just did a screenshot here of the online site for Wonders. And you can see I had clicked on differentiated instruction. You can see there's a bunch of stuff there for the approaching level. And then you only see part of it. And then for the on level, but you can even see here the difference between to support the students who are below level or approaching, there's a phonological awareness, there's additional producing of rhyme, identifying producing rhyme. For the on-level students, they're moving on to the decodable reader, right? And then there's something for the beyond students there. So I just want to kind of show what I meant by how all those connections are supporting each other and building and providing a strong, what's the word I'm looking for? A way to use the knowledge and skills you've learned and being able to apply it so that you have that strong connection.
So I see approaching level and I see on level.
I just didn't take
She
a big
didn't-
enough picture.
Okay. yeah.
Beyond would
I
be
can
the-
show you afterwards.
Beyond
Yep.
would be the next one.
And
There's a
There's a
lot.
whole lot.
There's
a whole lot.
So one of the things that we want to bring up and kind of go over, and that's why we also asked McGraw-Hill to be here, is as you know, there was the EJ Rock article about cultural responses, common, like curriculum, and then there's some questions up about that. Is it destructive? Is there issues going on with this? How are we doing it? And again, as you know, the district has begun to dip its toes in DEI over the past few years, and still working towards really working more with equity and inclusivity. I mean, again, we're at a lower level and continuing to move forward, but these conversations are really important as we move forward. So what does this mean for our district as a whole? So I want to, McGraw-Hill, if they could kind of discuss the E.G. Rock article, and I know that we have Monique here, and that's why I got Danielle's name wrong before. I apologize for that.
No worries.
You're the vice president of DEI, so perfectly through this and your work with cultural responsiveness and with E.J. Rock.
Absolutely. And actually, Danielle and I both attended that meeting together. And so I'm going to have Daniela give you the details in response to kind of how that article came about and, our background, and to provide greater information for you for that article as it relates to Wonders itself.
Yeah. So we were made aware of that article coming out, and we actually ended up reaching out to the NYU Metro Center and arranged to have a discussion with them, first and foremost, to understand their methodology and the rubrics for evaluating programs as they did. So we learned a lot from that meeting. I will say, so what we learned was they have a very set protocols. It is, I think they would agree, it's like a grassroots movement. It really is about the community being able to review instructional materials that are being used or proposed to be being used in their particular districts. And because as such, they intentionally look at a very small sample of selections at 3 grade levels, and then have a discussion based on their rubrics. So it was a great meeting, right, to understand their protocols and have that discussion. So I would say generally that we are going to continue to have our conversations with them to really understand the detail of what they found about the small samples of text that they did review. We talked a little bit, but we did find is that they actually didn't review some other aspects of their curriculum. So there are other texts besides the 3 that they identified within a text set itself, right? So in a text set, we have multiple variations of texts that, again, are on the same topic, try to provide different aspects of that topic. And so they did not review some of the texts that we would have wanted them to review, and having them review the text sets that they did. And they also did not review our culturally responsive lessons, which are lessons we have online that for some of the text. And we feel that some of the lessons that we have online do address some of the things that they had pointed out in one of the examples they had in the report. So that's only to say that we have reached out to NYU Metro Senator, we're continuing discussions with them. We learn more about their methodology, but we also want to begin showing them more things that we have done with the program and move on from there. Monique, anything you want to add there?
I think you summarized our meeting pretty well. I think one of the things at McGraw-Hill, because we serve and in our attempt to partner with those around the country, as we all know, there are differing views around the country. And so we are making sure that we have creation of materials that are reflective of the communities that we serve, as well as able to give choice to those who have differing opinions. Because in reality, in our world, there are those who have some differing opinions. But in that, for school districts such as yours, we want to make sure that we are indeed reflecting the communities that we serve. That is very important for us here at McGraw-Hill. And so that's why we felt it paramount to sit down and request a meeting with the NYU researchers to get their background, to get their view and their process, and continue those discussions with some other requests that we have, so that we can take that information in, but then also that we can continue conversations, as Daniela said, so that we can continue to grow to make sure that we're meeting the needs of our students. That's really our goal.
It sounds to me there was an article, say EJ Rock.
Yes.
That was
Through NYU, right?
through NYU, that was somewhat critical of Wonders,
Of the three
Of
top.
The three top programs in the country being used,
not just Wonders,
not just.
But they only evaluated the 3 top ones. They didn't
suggesting
evaluate
that they were not being inclusive enough.
Right.
And you folks feel as if you've had conversations with those people, and that you've come to some better understanding of what you offer and what their process is for evaluating.
Exactly.
Yes. And the conversations are continuing. I mean, we're learning with everyone else and striving to do better as we move forward. But yes, I think the conversation was a good one, and we want to continue those conversations with them beyond, going past the few pieces that they did review to look at some other things.
Okay.
So can I add
Wait.
one thing to
Yeah,
what
go ahead.
Danielle, I was just going to say, so one thing that Danielle, I think you shared with us in one of our conversations is that in response to that, McGraw-Hill began this bibliography of text sets, but something that the EJ Rock hadn't looked at all were the lessons that were already there, that were the culturally responsive lessons that were tied to some of the work that we booked. So I'm going to actually share this with our board members too, so that they can, and I have Delivering Justice, which is one of the stories in a 4th grade room. I also have another
Thank you.
one, which is really interesting because they shared it with us. Obviously, any teacher could pull up those lessons because they're right online for them.
And actually, these were shared with somebody who didn't agree with the book and said that it was culturally destructive. And these stories specifically were ones that were brought out. And so we looked deeper into these stories specifically. And again, on our own, we did this. And then we also then talked to McGraw-Hill. So I just wanted to kind of preface that. And also I want to preface that we do not have a curriculum at all that's been fully aligned or decoded or brought down to the fact of cultural responsiveness. We haven't gone through it anywhere. So this is our first step into that as well.
Yeah.
Correct.
And nothing's perfect, right? And everything's a work in progress, and you have to look at that and continue to build. And just because you purchase a resource and curriculum, and yes, there's other things, there's always add-ons, right? There's always things that you have to supplement and do and change, but it gives you a foundation that currently we are not at. And I do want to be clear that we don't have that at the moment. Dipping our toes, getting to this helps forward quicker. It's not.
Oops.
I think we lost.
I think they froze, right?
Good.
Hi there.
Okay.
You're back, but we can't see you yet.
Difficulties here
All
today.
right.
We can hear you though.
Yeah.
Okay.
All right, there we go.
Karen, did you say the
Oh, they're there.
bibliography part that is included? Or
That is
that's
not
an
included.
add?
That would be a supplemental piece. That might be something that a grade level, as they're working through this, says, this is going to be what I'm going to use for book clubs.
Mhm.
So I might take these 3 that go under the, say, natural disaster, because that's what we're looking at, and that would be an extra purchase.
Right. But and what a great book club it would be, because it's all on the same essential question, and it has approaching on level and beyond level text that you can utilize with your book groups on the same essential question.
So I think there's a little flexibility, but you kind of have to get into that program to see what's there, to say, what do we pull back on, and what do we, how do we replace it with
You
something
know,
within the
how
same?
great is it when your kids come home and they've been talking about
They're
something
excited.
and they're excited, and it's something that's, they might know more about it than you do.
Sure.
And they're saying, hey, today at school, we learned that, and you're going, wow.
Yeah.
I didn't know that. And that's really important stuff for us to know.
Right.
That's
Absolutely.
fun to watch.
It is.
100%.
So I'm going to fast track a little bit more because we're moving forward. So, so next is, where do we go from here?
Before we
Yeah.
go on, can I
Yes.
just ask a question about, we mentioned, and I appreciate the head-on approach to addressing the article that was written. We also have our own as a district, that the curriculum committee approved a few years ago, a diversity checklist. How does this program fare on that checklist?
So if you're only using it one at a time, right?
What do you mean one at a time?
Well, if you look at a book, right? Well, I think I'm going to do it without bias. It fares well, right? Because again, you have to be culturally appropriate. So you are looking at it. So let's say we're looking at the one where the Asian American writes about their parent or the woman who was in a sewing shop, right? If you take it out of context and you say, well, they're showing an Asian American in a sewing shop, you can say, well, that doesn't paint them in a positive light. But if then you take it in context saying, wait, this is a person who wrote from their life story in Chinatown, in where they grew up, and about that, then yes, it makes complete sense.
Well, and we
Right, and so I think, so if you use our rubric, and again, our rubric is only for one material aspect.
right, except we had to use it with the social studies textbook that the
Right.
fourth grade
Right.
got a few years ago, and so you had to look at the textbook
Right.
as a whole to
Yep.
see, did it meet all of those things throughout the book? So do
Yes.
these at each grade level, does it meet the checklist?
Yes,
I would say that this program goes well beyond the current curriculum that we're using, that we've pulled on our own. Teachers have their own individual libraries that they've built over
which
the
is not
years
use the rubric, by the way.
that hasn't, we haven't used the rubric for. So I think this is more fully encompassed through this program.
Any other questions?
Yeah.
Okay, so moving on, real quick. All right, so where do we go from here? And because we have 17 minutes.
Oh, boy.
Want me to jump into this real quick?
Yes, please.
All right, so I'll jump in real quick. Let me just be clear. We had a literacy committee that recently worked very hard, and I want to give them props because they spent a lot of time and effort to look at these and review these programs. And I also want to be clear too. Just because you have a literacy committee or a committee doesn't mean that everyone's in complete agreement. And that's not the purpose of the committee. You want people to share their different opinions and their different viewpoints. That's what makes a more well-rounded committee. So we certainly had people that came back on the committee and had some concerns or had some questions. And I think we have used that all along to really drive, questions that we've asked the McGraw-Hill directly. And I think that we're going to continue to use that to help drive the professional development we want moving forward, so that this is the best fit for our staff and our students at our school. So, some of the things that come up.
I want to say,
Please go ahead.
the majority of the committee chose Wonders. So it's, not the minority. If it flipped and the majority didn't, we wouldn't be sitting here today talking about Wonders. Right. I just want to kind of clarify that. It's not, yes, there's always people that have dissenting views and don't see it, or, may not always agree, but the majority,
This is the literacy committee.
Yep.
yes.
And how many people are on that?
We had grade level representation from every grade. We had special education teachers, we had 3 reading teachers, and a school psychologist.
So
And Jeff.
15, 16,
I want to say it was
12.
12.
Well,
No,
I think it was
I think there was 12 or 13 because we had I'm thinking of the Google form of mine. It was
Yeah.
12, right?
I thought
think it was
12
12
comes to
or
mind.
13.
Yeah, 12 comes to mind.
Including
And
us.
Karen and I, yeah.
Okay.
So we had that, yep.
13. Yes.
And in
pretty
voting-
big group.
And in voting for the program, teachers did share or are still in the process of sharing concerns, because nothing is perfect, but we need to be able to address those concerns
100%.
as we pick.
And that's exactly what we see here. So the things that are continuing down here, the organizational structure, the timing,
Right.
abundance, these are some of the concerns that were brought up. So I'm
Yeah, so these are the concerns that were brought up, which I think that, are valid concerns or concerns that we have as well, that we're gonna use to help drive our work with the professional development providers, so that we know when they come in, they can speak to these and provide professional development training directly to our staff, so that we are as prepared as we possibly can be when it's time to implement the program the way it's intended to be taught.
Foundational skills would be the phonemic awareness, the phonics, those early literacy skills in particular. One question came up from the early grade levels of, is this going to be enough? We're used to, we have our new phonics programs and we're used to spending more time. We don't know if there will be enough time here. So what we will do is, as we start this, we'll start it with that program and use what is in Wonders. If we find out as we begin in the year, the first quarter, this isn't working, we're gonna say, where do we need to supplement? Obviously, we're not going to hold back and not give students what they need.
Right.
So, but
again, the one
tier
key,
1 program usually should be reaching at least 80% of your
and that
kids.
one key piece is, we are doing a great job with the foundational skills now, but we're still teaching in isolation, right? So,
and we're using different things in different grade levels.
we are, right? So, for example, we're using one program in particular in kindergarten, we're using a different program in first and second grade, and some are using a phonemic awareness program
And
as well.
when
So it's a little hodgepodge, and
As
that's
we
not
said
what we
that
want.
to our literacy committee, as we spoke about that, people were nodding when you said, I want to be clear, if we go and we supplement,
We
we're
need to
going
be
to have
consistent.
one thing, we have to be consistent, and that's important, because that's the point of this. Professional development, we're really hoping that in working with a consultant, we'd be able to really focus in on, there's a lot of materials. What are the non-negotiables? What are the pieces that are most important for all of our
And the
grades?
organization and structure, just give you a quick example, first grade has, they have a block set for phonics. They have a block set for handwriting. They have a block set for ELA. They have a block set. So every single thing is cut down into its own individual block. This is fully encompassing. So when you look at this at the start, it's very overwhelming because it encompasses everything into one. So when you look at this from the outside, you're like, oh my God, this is going to take so much time. But again, it encompasses all the things that they have separate blocks for. We still need to take a look at it and see what that's going to look like, obviously, and that's part of our driving that
Clearly,
professional development. Right.
And I'm not sure if, Monique, you're still there. Did you say that you could talk a little bit about professional development too?
Absolutely. If we're able to partner with you on Wonders, then you would have a dedicated consultant that comes and works with you to show you those materials, to help with the implementation of those materials, to build that encouragement so that teachers don't feel overwhelmed by the amount of materials that actually come with the program. As you know already, it's not about the resource, it's about the teacher and the teacher's comfortability and their educational expertise in how to actually use all of the resources that are available to them for implementation. So we definitely will have someone that will be available to sit down with your team, Karen, and to formulate that professional development for you in regards to the resources. Additionally, should you choose, there will be an opportunity to assist you in your DEI efforts as well in the area of building a culturally responsive instructional classroom environment. And so we're setting up opportunities. We have workshop opportunities where if you felt this would be a need for your district and to kind of help you in that next step of building a more culturally responsive school district, we have those sets of professional learning opportunities available for you to review and to make a decision if you think that is going to be applicable for your school district.
I don't know if they said this already, Jeff and Karen,
Bless you.
and I apologize.
No,
It was an emergency phone call I had to take. We are well aware that, our timing is off on this. We thought we would be purchasing earlier in the year, therefore having more time for professional development and rollout. So we're going to have to shift, right? We're going to have to figure this out and really take a deep look into how do we do this without overwhelming people, understanding how this works, and doing it in a way that maximizes our teachers' ability and also doesn't impact the students negatively, right? So we do get that, and that's something that we have to look for and really understand, because there is a lot here, working with McGraw-Hill to help us who've done this in other districts, and then really taking a sensitive approach into knowing that, there is things we do, and we can't go all at once here. There's gonna be, some time to really understand how we do this approach and how we, maybe we can't label and put all the culture responsive and everything, and what we do this year is not gonna look like what we do in the following year, right? And our implementation for year one is gonna look very, very different from year three, because we'll have that time to really build and understand it. So I just wanna be clear that we know this going in, that it's not gonna be, all right, on September 1st, we're rolling it
Ready.
out, right? We get that.
Did you want to speak at all to the independent reading or the small group instruction?
Yeah, I think that's, I mean, this is, again, was brought up within our group too, and I think this is very important. And again, this goes back to our teaching philosophies and how we are as teachers. We very much believe that students need to be engaged in reading texts, on a regular basis. And that's something that we've always loved here, and our kids have built a love for learning. So we want independent reading opportunities for our students. That's something we're going to bring to the professional development committee to be sure we can find ways to continue to maintain that in some capacity. We also find small group instructional time is critical. I think we can all agree. That's where we provide the most differentiation, and the students get the most out of their learning. We as teachers, me as an administrator, I'm not a firm believer in providing direct instruction where my students just sit and listen for an hour or more. That's not the way we believe in teaching. And
unfortunately, they did see some of that when they went and viewed it. So that did put a bad taste in a couple of people's mouths from seeing that. But again,
I don't know that was
just
the
like you
program.
said,
That was
like-
more of a teacher.
It's all
Right.
about who's in the class
Right.
teaching.
And our
how
teachers
they
are
teach.
not
That's
the
not how we
stand and
teach.
deliver teaching. I
Right,
mean,
right.
It's not the way it works.
No. So again, those are takeaways that we took from our committee that we find critical to this process. And we're going to use that information moving forward to make sure that helps drive our plan moving forward.
Is there another district or somewhere where teachers could go for a site visit to see teachers who are using it appropriately
So,
instead of a what not to do?
well, the district that is close to us also is just rolling this out, correct? Over the past couple of years.
Well,
No.
so we looked at multiple districts. One was 3 hours away, and it was almost perfect to our school district. Demographically was a perfect match. It was too far away, just it wasn't the right time.
We know that Scotia also uses it. We have talked to a teacher who is interested in seeing it. Ultimately, I think it's really about having the right professional development and the right work with our own teachers. I'd rather see better time spent with us saying, how is it going to work right for us? And then seeing somebody else's. We were already kind of burned by seeing somebody else's interpretation of people who did not they were in their first year, they did not have professional development. They spent, like they say, 100 hours over the summer unpacking and trying to figure it out and watching videos. That's not what we're going to do. We clearly want to invest time and money with the teachers and the professional development. Even if it's slower, but doing it right, that's important.
And again, I think not to tout our staff, but the caliber of our staff and their attention to our students, I think really does change that game a little bit, right? Because they're not, if it's whole group instruction, they're not going to do whole group instruction. They're
Gonna
going
do
to look at the levels.
pair, share, or turn and talks or something to break that down so that it's not just me standing in front of a group of 25 students lecturing or something.
We're getting close to.
Can I just ask one
Sure.
question while the McGraw-Hill
Yes.
representative is still on the phone?
Yep.
Have you done slow rollouts with districts before? Is there a way to guide us? Because it doesn't sound like we have the time to get everybody up and ready to roll out September 1 full on. Do you have recommendations on how maybe a slower rollout, what that would look like?
And just so you notice, she smacked her fist into her hand. If you didn't see that.
We can see the video.
Yeah, we can see this. We can see the side view. That is a very good question, and I think the answer to that question would be yes. I think again, it's about your actual design of professional development that's going to be strategized to meet the needs of your school district. That's when that critical conversation comes in between you and that professional services person. and how you feel your rollout should come in, how you feel it should be handled, even down to by grade level, maybe, whatever the best way you feel, you should be able to roll out your resources. That's going to be that critical conversation that you have. We try not to be so boilerplate that we miss what's most important to you. So really making sure that we're listening. At McGraw-Hill, we strive to be a partner and not a vendor. I've been in your shoes before. I've served as a CAO before. I had a number of vendors coming at me trying to sell. What I leaned towards were those who were trying to be partners, who listened to my challenges, who listened to my celebration moments, who listened to what the needs of my school districts was. And that's how I selected my partner. So we at McGraw-Hill want to be partners. And so when it comes to professional development, again, we understand that the number one resource in the room is the teacher, and making sure that teacher is knowledgeable and comfortable and feels like he or she is able to challenge their students to think critically, to learn how to read. That is what's most important to us. So that critical conversation, that is space for that to have, to how you would like to roll out your professional development. Definitely.
So I am going to just say this to be on record is, will our rollout be perfect? Absolutely not. Will there be complaints? I'm sure there will be. I mean, I will tell you, I don't think there's anything that you can do that people are going to be 100% happy with, but we're going to do our effort and best effort to make sure that it's a smooth and welcome rollout.
Well, we're not being apologetic about this. This is something that's necessary.
It's a reading program.
Right.
We're here to look at reading programs.
This is something that's necessary. You're moving forward. This is a powerful program, and I'm picking up. I mean, we're running out of time here. I don't know what the next step
The
is.
next step is I'm going to put on the agenda for this to be hopefully approved by the board in May. Because we need to purchase it with the 22-23 money that we have.
Well, I understand.
That we-
And then we need
You
to plan
need
the PD.
something from the committee to support that.
I'm going to need the committee to discuss it at the board meeting and share this, because again, it's a 45-minute, this has been a long presentation for you. So that's why we do it here, and I want to make sure
If you have
the
questions,
committee
you've got-
is in support of this. Because if the committee's not in support of it, then I don't think it's something I can put to the agenda. But it is something that I recommend. I know Jeff recommends it. I know Karen recommends it. I know that the majority of the committee has recommended it, with the caveats of knowing that there are issues and things that we have to address as we move forward. Like, we know this. We're very clear that, the comments and concepts that were brought up as concerns, we shared with you. And we know that that's something we have to look at. But I do feel that this
Do you have
program is
anything
best.
that you would do you have any hesitancy at this time?
Of course. So the consultant that would be very nicely paired with the district, I would want to know, who is this consultant? Have they taught? Have they used the program? Or are they just someone that works
Jody,
for
I
the company that can tell us all about it?
Yeah. Danielle, can you, Moni?
So we have a whole dedicated team of curriculum specialists who specialize in really knowing this program, learning the program, helping with the implementation of the program, and not just the A's and B's and mechanics of using of a book or an extra resource. As far as the actual person, I don't work specifically in that department. They're broken to regions, and so we can get information and background to you about this specific consultant that will be working with you. But they are specialists that basically live and breathe Wonders, and their day-to-day is working with educators across the country.
Monique, is that done like regionally, or, do we have any say in who we work on, or do you just, provide that person, whoever works in that region?
It's done, there are some national consultants, but there's also some regional consultants. Again, I would have to work with my team lead, who will then connect with the leader of the curriculum specialist, and then we can identify from there, which can be, those can be continued conversations that we can definitely have with Jeff and Karen as well.
And would that be in person, or that would just be remote? and
We've
how
requested
We
often?
requested in person.
We've requested to start at least in person, right? We can do that. I think we talked about that the last time if we had professional development. I believe Nicole told us that, right?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
And how often?
Well, hopefully
we
in the
don't have a
beginning.
plan
We don't
because
have
we're
a
not
plan yet,
there
right?
yet.
We got to build that plan.
But we do have
Barbara, do
money
you have anything else?
budgeted for that.
Well, yeah, but we do have money budgeted for the professional development piece.
Robin? Else?
I think we're okay for now.
Okay. I'm okay.
I can always follow up with our team too. and that
So
would
if,
be helpful.
hearing what I'm hearing here is it sounds like we're okay with you proceeding
Okay.
through whatever recommendations you need to make in order for us to move
Okay.
forward with Wonders.
Yep, so I will be recommending it to the board.
Good.
All right, thank you very much.
Thank you so much for your time.
Yeah, thank you. And
We
Carrie and Beth,
appreciate it.
reach out, obviously, if you have additional questions.
Thank you, Danielle.
Great, thank you.
Thank
Bye.
you. Have a good one.
Bye-bye.
We have two other items on the agenda that are not going to be addressed
They
today.
are not.
I thought you were very optimistic.
Yeah, I
Tim, with
was
your
very
questions.
optimistic.
I know, I was like, boy,
Yeah.
Tim, he's really pushing
I
that.
am,
with
I
that
am
one.
gonna keep bringing this one.
Yes.
Most recently, and I'll just stop right here, but this is a center article from, an April 3rd, onboard article, all about artificial intelligence. There's one attached to the agenda. I'm reading more and more about this. I haven't really tried it myself. I've talked to people who have.
It's amazing.
I have.
I talked to a buddy of mine who owns a business, and it's an insurance business. And he said, he went to Chat GPT and said, give me a marketing plan for the next 5 years for my insurance. And he had some specific elements that he put in there. 15 seconds later, he had a complete marketing plan.
It does do some hallucinations. though,
Oh,
is what they call it.
absolutely. I mean,
Yeah.
that's the whole point of me
Yeah.
saying we need to be
Right.
aware
So
of
we
what
have,
we're
just
getting
really
into.
quickly, we have spoken to our department chairs.
Yeah.
We've been having conversations about this now. And really it comes down to us looking at our assessments, right? This is what our department chair said. Our department chair was real clear is, look, we know that kids might do things or people might use this because there's a way to use it. But if we use appropriate assessments and check for understanding in the classroom, we know what we're truly teaching kids. And then what the forefront of education is going to look like, that's a whole new different conversation.
Well,
right?
my
'Cause
questions
that's-
that I brought to your attention, I said, this is gonna be challenging. Because this is a new way of teaching and learning. And my three questions that just off the top of my head were, do we expect Voorheesville students to turn to AI tools to complete assignments? I think the answer is gonna be yes.
Yes,
That's
well.
gonna be.
I will.
Yeah.
I'll be very honest with you.
Right.
I've used it. It's great. It's a great time saver.
And
I've
then I get into
put
the
an article
question
in
of
and asked it to
academic
summarize it.
integrity.
Mhm.
Should
We
should more be
started
done
talking
to
about all this
promote
today.
academic integrity?
We've talked all about
And
this.
and then what can be done to help students understand the importance of of the importance of what they are learning. So, sure, I can easily go to Chat GPT and boom, I got the assignment done. I haven't learned a thing.
Yeah, we've started these conversations.
Okay, all right, that's really,
Because you're right on top of it. That's.
I mean, those are
gonna
the things I think we gotta be, this is a game changer. So,
Mhm.
enough said, but
I
I think we
will-
gotta I think we gotta stay on top of that one.
So I will present the school efforts partner and parents choice receiving from NICEAD, the document that I shared with you on the agenda. I'll present it at the board meeting. So you can.
The questionnaire.
Yeah, I'm going to present it at the board.
That's
meeting.
fine.
All right?
Barbara, anything else?
Nope.
Robin,
No, thank you.
Kelly? Jeff,
No, sir.
Karen?
No.
Right?
No.
All right,
All right, thanks,
we
everybody.
are hereby adjourned. Thank you.
Thank you.
Sir.